Is giving 2 weeks notice obsolete in today's job market, especially with all the mass layoffs going on? Oh man, I don't know. This is a tough one, but let's dive into this a little bit more and see what conclusion we come to. So first things first, why were we always told to give 2 weeks notice to begin with when it came to our jobs? Whether we were younger and we were still working in ice cream shops, Foot Locker, just shoe stores, to corporate America now, right? Why were we always told that? There's a few different reasons for this. Number one, it gives time for the corporation to prepare to find new talent to bring in and train, assuming they don't bring in somebody from the inside and they just make a lateral move, right? Lateral meaning you take someone that's already in the company and they're not promoted directly above them to a position above them. They take a position that is arguably in the same level, but maybe because it's in a different team or a different specialty or something like that, that can still lead to financial growth or just growth and opportunity from there. That's what lateral means for those who don't know. But yeah, basically to hire people, interviewing, hiring, training, and all these other things, background checks, this all costs the company time and, of course, mainly money, right? So naturally, companies want to mitigate this. They want to keep it at a certain level, and don't want to spend more than they feel like they need to, right? So when you decide that you want to leave an organization, it's nice to the company when you give them a heads up when that type of situation is going to happen. And now they are in the mindset of, hey, we only have X amount of time before so and so leaves. Have we found anyone to replace them? Do we already have a head start on that? Can we make this a seamless transition, right? Can we make it so that as soon as this person's gone, the new person can hop in, preferably right away, or maybe within a week or two? That way, operations won't take a big of a hit. The workload won't be unevenly distributed to other workers on the team or even on other teams even. And it just won't throw things into disarray. So that's one of the main reasons. It helps the company more seamlessly transition from one person, either an associate or entry level worker or a manager of some kind, to transition to somebody new who they can kind of easy peasy pass this work off to or even rearrange things so that it's fitting for them without all their operation, the entire workplace being thrown off. The second main reason why we were told to give 2 weeks notice before you leave an organization or just some type of notice in general is it's supposed to preserve your reputation in the job market. Apparently, when you don't give notice and it happens multiple times and you kind of just blindside your employers of, hey, I'm done, or I just stopped showing up and they pretty much got the message from there, but you never directly told someone, you never wrote a resignation letter, you never sent a resignation email, anything like that, and you kind of just dropped the bomb and left. You do that enough times. These days, I don't think it takes that long, but if you do that enough times, you will develop a reputation for it. It may not even go as far as your local area. It might go otherwise because a lot of these big companies that many people work for not only have a national level presence, many of them have an international level presence. So if you did this to a big tech consulting firm or management consulting firm, you may be able to hopscotch to another consulting firm or another tech company in a consultant role, or however you decide to pivot. But if you do it like 3, 4, 5 times, then eventually it's going to catch up with you and you're going to develop a reputation of, we shouldn't bring this person on because they're only going to stay for X amount of time. The first time something goes wrong or you have a tough conversation, they bail with no notice or anything like that, right? And that leads to what many people know, blackballed. Basically, the minute that your name and face, but more so your name is brought up and people already attach it to that type of behavior, they don't care how good your resume looks, how well it's formatted, the experience that you pursued through other people's corporations or through other people's companies. They don't even care about what you pursued on your own time you might be successful in. You have stained your name. And that's where another reason why 2 week notices are important. Now, rather, your reputation can be affected by more than just you telling people that you're done and you're leaving and you're going to go somewhere else. There are other factors that definitely play into that, but that's one of the key reasons that giving notice was always important. Because another reason, and probably the main example we've all been told, you never know when you have to go back to a previous employer. Either you have to or you just decide to. There have been situations I've been told where people, they go into an organization, they're there for a long time, 5, 10, 15 years. They leave, probably go to a competitor or just go to another company that's not a direct competitor, but they are still in the same type of role, technical specialist, consultant, something like that. And they just decide after 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, yeah, I don't really care for this environment. I'm going to go back to what I know I was good at and I liked. I'll just go into a different position if they offer it to me or whatever the case is, right? So whether you have to or want to, you never know when you want to go back down to an old situation. But if you left them on a bad note with a bad taste in their mouth, you can forget about it. Now, why do we want to touch on this today? So lately, there seems to be a growing trend on the different company side, on the corporation side of things, to automatically start escorting people out the minute they give a 2 week notice. And it doesn't seem to be discriminatory as far as like what level this happens. You can be mid level management, upper management, you can be more associate level, not quite entry level, but not necessarily leading a team yet. It seems to be happening at all levels where people are putting in a notice and in different industries as well. I have a former coworker of mine who got in touch with me. She put in her 2 weeks a notice in a clinic of some kind that she was working at. We used to work in an orthopedic clinic. I don't know where she worked at now, but she put in her 2 weeks notice. She's not a manager or anything of any kind. I believe she's like an X-ray tech. Well, she was in the clinic we worked at. I don't know if she was at this new place. Whatever. Either way, she put in her 2 weeks notice and was escorted out pretty much right away. Now, I don't know if this is standard procedure for people in the medical field because you're dealing with a lot of PHI or personal health information. Cybersecurity folks know that. I don't know if that's just because of her specific situation, the clinic she was working for, and the personnel she was dealing with. I don't know. I've seen it on TikTok where a young lady, I don't remember what she worked in, but there's this one black woman, a sister, if you will, who experienced the same thing. She was going to resign from a job, put in a 2 weeks notice, and she was escorted out pretty much right on the spot. And she ended up suing the corporation, apparently left with a fairly hefty settlement. So there seems to be a developing trend. So, in contrast to our first question, why were we always told to give notice? Let's give this a thought and we'll see how this rubs people the wrong way if it does. Should corporations, when they decide, either as a contractor or as full time employees, either way, should corporations or different companies put some thought into giving us notice when they decide, hey, we decide this partnership's not working, let's separate, right? And give us a 2 week notice or even a 1 week notice, a 1 month notice, something like that. Well, as nice as that would sound, I can immediately pick up on some discrepancies with that type of thing. Because I'm sure there are plenty of people who think we are entitled to that. If we have to give you guys notice, then we should be able to demand notice from you guys as well, right? Let's go over some of the things that might prevent that from ever happening. Now, let's kick this off with an analogy. Typical situation, especially these days, it's happening a lot, just a fallout of the pandemic and just the job market and all these things. So I know this is happening a lot, which is someone's living with you, they're in between jobs, or maybe they're just trying to save money, but they have a job, if not two. Either way, someone's under your roof and in your household. You may have kids, you may have a family, paint your own picture. Bottom line, someone is staying with you in your home. They don't do things as you ask them to do. They don't clean up after themselves. They're very vulgar and disrespectful in ways that like are not funny. Like you guys may be friends, and especially as guys, we tend to communicate in a way that from the outside looking in. If you don't know our relationship, you probably think, why are they so mean to each other? This and that. That's just how we play, right? But this person is crossing those lines or those boundaries that you have set in their household, and it's just leaving a very unsavory and just uncomfortable feeling in the home, right? The one place you're supposed to go to and kick your feet up and relax and spend time with your family or even yourself, whatever the case is, it's just all being ruined, right? So you decide, okay, I love this person, I don't wish them any harm, but they need to go. The question being, would you allow, once you come to that decision, would you allow this person to stay in your home for another 2 weeks? Sometimes it works out like that. Some people extend that offer. Hey, I need you out by the end of the week. I need you out by the end of the weekend, a couple of days. I need you out after a couple weeks. I need you out after the month. Whatever the case is, whatever suits you, right? So we know that that happens sometimes. But if someone was to push far enough, if they were to cross lines and cross boundaries and to just all around not perform well as you ask them to and require them to stay in your home, to be a good friend or whatever it is you're doing, eventually you're going to come to a mindset of, okay, you just need to go now. Like, I know I told you you had a month or 2 weeks or whatever, but no, you just need to go now, you know? So I asked that question to say, if you owned your own company, you brought someone onto your team. I'm not saying it's from a savior perspective. The job market is how it. You just hired somebody. That's all you know. You hired somebody you thought was capable enough to do a job, and you're finding out that either they're not capable, in addition to them not being a great person to just interact with, or they may be capable of doing the job, objectively speaking, but they may not be that great to interact with. If anything, they may be the source of a lot of this tension and accusations and a bunch of other things that are taking place in the workplace or under your company's name, right? So at some point, especially when something bad enough happens, you do reach a point of, okay, we just need to cut ties, like right now. If we're losing money, losing sleep, mental health and stress is being affected, a bunch of the other people that are working for my company are being affected by this, either personally or their workload, is being somehow affected because this person's not doing their job right, which means I need to pass off to someone I trust, and just a bunch of different variables, right? If that's what's going on, it's much easier to get into a mindset of, let's just go ahead and get rid of this person right away. There's no real reason to keep them around. Which brings us to number two. Keeping somebody around that has proven to be a detriment to you personally, more so you professionally, and through profession, is probably a liability in terms of money for your company. Would you really want to give them an opportunity to allow your company to lose money or to possibly even take a blow to its reputation for another 2 weeks or another 2 months? This is something you most likely stake your life on, as most people tend to do when they have their own organization. So, do you really want to give someone an opportunity to ruin your brand for another 2 weeks to a month, especially if they know that they're leaving? So they may actually take it upon themselves to just willy-nilly harm your brand and just destroy things more. That there are people out there that will do that. Like, once they get a source of bad news, they'll just be like, well, I'll just destroy everything. If I can't work here, then no one can. And we've seen versions of this in our personal lives. So I'm sure, no doubt, people can have done it professionally. So would you really give somebody that opening? So when you think about it like that, it makes you look at it a little bit differently when you start, wondering, like, hey, we're no longer getting the courtesy of being able to serve out a final 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before we leave a job because we don't like it there or come across a better opportunity or whatever the case is. They're just throwing us out, right? They want us to do them the nice gesture of giving them a heads up so that they can get a head start on their process to bring in somebody new, to train somebody and get them caught up and redistribute work and, just do whatever they need to do. And it's nice and copacetic for them. But what about us? You know? And now when you look at it from this angle, it's like, okay, from the company side, at least, for a handful of reasons, I can see why that wouldn't be such a good idea. But I'm sure there are some people, myself included, who's been hit with layoffs and things, in these past few years, as everyone else has. You do eventually get the thought of, it would be nice to get that same courtesy. It would be nice to be told, hey, we've determined that either due to company restructuring, financial reasons, or maybe it is based on performance or whatever the case is, not a cultural fit. That's another thing companies are saying these days. Either way, we've determined that this will be your last pay period, not just suddenly at the drop of a dime, your last day. They say, no, we've determined it's going to be your last pay period. That would be nice. You've assured I'm going to leave with a full check, my last check, but a full one, instead of you drop me in the middle of a pay period. Now I'm going to get half of a full check that I still have to stretch for, especially if you have a family, food and utilities and rent and all these other things, right? Like, it's nice to be thought about in that way. But when you look at it from the company side of things, it just doesn't justify them doing that. But hey, if you have any feedback or thoughts on that, go ahead and let me know down below. I actually want to know people's thoughts on this because this has been happening, on an uptick for quite some time. So I'm actually curious what more people have experienced and what they think about this. So one last detail I'll throw out, because I actually just learned this fairly recently. I didn't know this. Apparently, when you climb up the corporate ladder, whether it's by moving from company to company or by staying in one and working from the bottom up, either way, once you reach a certain level, especially C-suite level, you're just exposed to too much confidential information about the organization that they literally cannot risk you staying around after you give them 2 weeks notice, because you might be hoarding company secrets at that point. They're already running the risk of you taking confidential information and taking it directly to someone in the same industry, a competitor, that you can give them financial information. You may give them client information. Some people, they depend on the line of work and how much, end users and customers and clients like them. When they leave an organization, some clients instantly go with that person because the relationship isn't so much company to company. It's between key people in one company and one main person that they seem to have a good relationship with. So sometimes when one person leaves, they run the risk of a good amount of clientele leaving with them, right? So different things. But let's say for the sake of argument, you work in finance and you're a C-suite or just upper management level person. Once you decide you want to put in your 2 weeks notice, it's a very high likelihood that you will be escorted pretty much right on the spot. I actually was told this story about how one lady, she gave her 2 weeks notice. She did work in finance and she was pretty high up the food chain. Before she even left the HR office after giving her 2 weeks notice, her permissions were revoked. She didn't have privileges or access to anything in the corporate system. And her manager and I think one or two other people were already waiting at her desk to escort her out, pack her things and escort her out. There's actually a good reason. Again, companies cannot risk you sticking around for a couple of extra weeks to just hoard potential company secrets and clientele information so that you can take it to the next company, and maybe even through that, because this happens, you may use that as a bargaining chip so that you can get even higher up on the competitor's corporate ladder, establish a good relationship with them, right? And just make things work for you and your benefit and the company's benefit, the new companies, while your original employer, they may take a hit because of what you just took with them. Updated financial reports, client information, dirt on the company in terms of like the company may from the outside looking in is performing well, but in reality it's actually not doing so hot. So they're in hot water, things like that. They don't want to give you an opportunity to keep updating that type of information. It's bad enough that you have it and you're leaving. We don't want to just let you in and get the most updated information possible. So that's something else that I learned very recently. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video right here. Hope it was helpful for you. If you got any feedback, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section below for me. Thanks for being here with me again. I look forward to talking to you next time. Later.